Hey everyone, it's Devin. I'm here today at the Saltwater Edge with another fly tying video. Today we're going to be tying the Albie Escort, which is one of my favorite false albacore flies, and it's actually a variation of the very popular and somewhat controversial fly known as the Albie Horror. This one's a good variation because instead of the hot glue, it uses thick UV resin, which makes the application a lot easier, and you can crank out a lot more of them without having to mess with the messy hot glue. So follow along and learn how to tie the Albie Escort for yourself. So in the vise here, I have a 1/0 Mustad Tarpon hook. You can really get away with a lot of different hooks for this pattern as long as they're sort of a short shank, wide gap hook. I like the Tarpon hooks because they have a pretty good geometry to hold the hook set, which I really like with these kind of faster fish like bonito and false albacore. First step here is we're going to tie in a length of bucktail off the back. I'm going to use the top third section of bucktail here because I don't want it to flare much once I tie it in. So we're going to start our thread. I'm using 6/0 Vivis thread here in white. You can tie this with mono, but you can use 140 denier, but I'm going to use Vivis today. Just cut that off. And now I'm going to take from the top third of the tail here, it's going to take a pretty small bundle of bucktail, maybe like a couple dozen fibers right there. And now I'm going to measure it out. I have marks on my vise because I tie a lot of these flies at about 2 inches. Trim the butts off that and then tie that right in off the back. And we really don't want to distribute this much around the hook. We kind of want to just have it sitting right off the top of the hook shank right there. Now the next step is to come in with some 15mm Estaz. We're tying this one to chartreuse. This one is chartreuse Estaz. I'm just going to pull the ends off this so I have a nice tie-in anchor, and then fasten that right in front of the bucktail. Fasten that down good. Now I'm going to advance my thread right behind the eye. Now as I palmer this up, I'm going to pull it back almost like a hackle so I don't have a lot of trapped fibers and I get the full length of that 15mm. I'm just going to have open spirals working up the hook shank until I meet my thread right behind the eye. Just like that. Now I'm going to tie this off, a couple good wraps and then some wraps right in front. I can spin it and trim it off. And I'm always going to preen these back and give a few good wraps there just to kind of clean up the hook eye. Now I'm going to brush out the Estaz here because we're going to trim the sides. Brush it out nice so it's all standing proud. And now a good pair of synthetic scissors is really, really nice for this. I'm going to turn it sideways, and then without opening my scissors too much, I'm just going to slip it on the side and trim away the Estaz. Sort of a channel, and you'll see why in the next step. I'm going to do that to the other side as well. Now we have 2 flat sides and sort of a taller profile. Now the next step is to grab 2 hackle feathers. You can get away with a few different saddles for this. I really like a rooster cape rather than a saddle. You can get away with flat wing saddles, but the rooster cape is really great. This is a Hareline Saltwater rooster cape, and you're really looking on this bottom section right here. If you fold it up, you can see those shorter feathers right there. You really want to take from this bottom third. And I've selected 2 like feathers here. I'm going to stack them together. And I'm going to again trim them to about 2 inches to 2.5 inches for a 1/0 hook, which I have the mark on my vise here, which is not a bad idea. If you're ever looking to, even if you're not a commercial tyer, if you're looking to have more consistent flies, you should consider making some marks on your vise or having a little ruler on your vise. So now I have these cut here at 2.5 inches, and I'm going to take my thick UV resin, and this is what we're going to use instead of the hot glue like in the traditional pattern. So I'm going to move this up a little bit, and having this thin applicator tip is essential. I think this is in the 1/2 ounce version. Having this little applicator tip here makes it very easy to apply this thick UV resin neatly. So I'm going to start right behind the hook eye and just lay a bead of this thick UV resin all the way down to where we're tied in the bucktail. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take our feather, preen out those barbules right here. Now, something that's very useful for this is to have a good bodkin, because what we're going to do is we're going to, so I can do this way, take this feather, press it against the thick UV, and then use the bodkin just to tamp it down, like that. It's going to kind of flatten out that profile, and it's going to bond to that thick UV really well. Now we're just going to come in with our UV flashlight, cure that, and we're going to repeat the process on the other side. Let me just make sure this bucktail is preened away. I'm going to flip it around and do the exact same thing on this side. I'm going to lay a bead of this thick UV resin right from behind the hook eye to where we tied in that bucktail. You can be pretty conservative with this UV resin. You really don't want to glob it on. Now we're going to take another one of these feathers, just preen it out a little bit. Take our bodkin and just press it down into that UV. Now we're going to hit it with our UV light. And now we're almost done. You see we have the basic profile of the fly. And this fly, you can change the profile just by the hackles that you use. If you want sort of a taller peanut bunker profile, you just use some wider hackles. If you want a really slim bay anchovy, you can even use flat wing saddles, or flat wing hackles rather, like I said, to have a really slim profile. So you can really adjust the profile to whatever you like. And now we're almost done. Just gonna grab a couple eyes. And our flash. I'm using 3/16 holographic eyes here, the 3D ones. And I'm also going to use some 1/69 inch lateral scale. And that's going to be our eyes and our flash. Essentially, we're just going to repeat the process that we used to fasten the hackles. Let me get these eyes prepped. Something that I like to do, makes it a lot easier as I commercial tie these, is get my eyes ready. And I'll take out 2 eyes, and I'll put them right on my hand here. And you'll see why in a second. I'll put them right on my hand like that. You'll see why in just a second. It's gonna make it a lot easier. I'll give it a few wraps right in front of those, right behind the eye rather. Now we're gonna come back in with our thick UV. And we're gonna lay another bead. We're gonna lay it on pretty thick, right behind the eye, and then we're gonna taper it down all the way back to essentially the end of the hook bend. And that's gonna prevent it from fouling. It's gonna allow us to fasten our flash and our eyes. So I'm going to take a strand of this very thin 69th inch lateral scale. I'm going to double it over, pull it right up behind the eye there. Then I'm going to take the eye. Now I'm going to pull this lateral scale right through that bead of UV. And then I'm going to come in right behind it with the eye and fasten the eye right there. It's a little messy, but you can get pretty good at it. And now I'm going to hit that again. So now we fasten both our flash and our eye with just one step. And we're just going to do the same exact thing on the other side. This fly is really great because that thick UV soaks right into that chenille, that Estaz, and it makes really a bomb-proof fly. You can catch a lot of fish on this fly because it's so simple, because you're using that thick UV. It really just kind of makes it solid like a rock. And we don't do a lot of real tying with this. Besides the Estaz, everything's really fastened in with the thick UV. Now if we can get that vise, I'll try to show you again. So, double that over. Now we're going to come in again with the thick UV. Again, that thin applicator tip is really crucial. Then we'll come in, lay it on a little thick, and then taper it down towards the end, past the hook bend. And now I'm going to come in with my eye, pull the flash through, and then go right in with the eye. And then press that in, make sure it's nice and tight. And now we're going to hit it with that UV light again. And that is your Albie Escort. It's a very simple fly. You can tie a lot of them. The biggest limiting factor is finding the right hackles for it. Once you find a good rooster cape, it makes it a lot easier. I'm going to whip finish. Comes off, and then I'm going to come in. Just to finish it off, I'm going to come in with a little bit of Solarez Bone Dry, ultra thin, just to tighten up that head. Let's give it a little brush. And then one more time, we'll hit it with the UV.
Phil, all I did is you just texture it. You texture first, don't you? You texture.
And that is your Albie Escort. Hope you learned something. You can really scale it up and down, basically from a size 4 to a 2.0. Change the profile very easily. So I hope you guys spin some up. I hope you find a lot of success with them. And if you're looking to buy them yourself, you can find them on at Saltwater Edge or at Anglers Marketplace. So leave us a comment if you have any questions, and make sure to like and subscribe. Thanks.